This might be my very favorite one. Welcome back to the Austin and Matt podcast. This is Matt.
And this is Austin.
This week we watched You Were Never Really Here, starring Joaquin Phoenix. But before we get to that, Austin, what have you been watching this week?
Yeah, man. So one thing that we've been watching is, well, it's been a little different. So my wife, she's been doing these kind of like little cooking adventures. It's what I like to think of them as, where she's put like different movies into these little envelopes, and then she picks an envelope. Well, she has her friends pick an envelope, and then she opens it up, and in there it has like a movie, and then like a couple things from a movie as like a meal, so to speak.
That's cool.
Really fun. Now, one of the meals that we did this week was for Jurassic Park. So while she was cooking the meal, we're also streaming Jurassic Park in the back as well, and just kind of having like a big Jurassic day. So in our little doc, if you actually want to see the meals that we made, so for
This is
Jurassic
the
Park,
first
we did.
time I've ever seen this.
You liar, you know it. So the egg-like thing that you see there, it's a croquette, and it has like meat and stuff in it. Super good. It's pretty much just like potato with like some meat in it, with like a nice outer crust.
Sounds delicious.
Sitting inside a nice spring salad that had a raspberry vinaigrette sauce with it, and then the main dish of the meal was ribs. So there's some ribs in there.
What is the delicious blue drink?
Oh, that drink. So she called it Blue's drink, like Blue the raptor from Jurassic World.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If I'm gonna be really honest, the drink didn't taste that well, but it's okay.
Oh no. It just looks like blue Kool-Aid. I would have just made blue Kool-Aid.
Yeah. So it was like, I know it had blue Hawaiian punch in it. 7-Up was also added into it. I think what really threw it off is that like the dripping stuff. I think it was like salt that was used, and it kind of just turned into like a really salty kind of substance. But
ew.
everything
Gross.
else was fantastic though.
Nice.
So there was other movies that I watched in the week, but like that was probably like the most memorable moment of the week was watching Jurassic Park, cooking that, enjoying it. And then when I was taking the pictures, I kind of just had like some standard pictures, but like my son has a whole bunch of dinosaur toys that just are like always around. So I decided just to kind of like steal one and find a way of how I can like throw it into the mix and try to make it work. The picture that I like a lot, which is that first one, where I kind of use like the silhouette of the dinosaur onto the wall. Had a lot of fun with that one. But that is a little bit of what I watched, more so what I did this week. Matt, what did you watch this week?
Wait, I have one question about Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
You watched it with your kids?
Oh, yeah.
Did it terrify them?
My son loves dinosaurs. Like, over the top. Tons of dinosaur toys. Doesn't matter if it's Jurassic Park 1, 2, or 3. We all know number 2 like sucks, but like he doesn't care. Jurassic World, he's all into it. He doesn't call them dinosaurs though, he calls them roars. So
that
he's
makes
like,
roars!
And gets like really into it. But like my daughter too, because like my son's so passionate about it, like she's also pretty passionate about it. There's sometimes though where she like runs to me and she's like, there's a monster. And then
so they weren't scared of it then?
No.
I watched it when I was like 7 and was hiding behind the couch. The scene where, if I say Newman, you know who I'm talking about, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. The scene where Newman dies scared the hell out of me. And really, like, thinking about it now, it is a masterful scene in building tension. Like, it really is just so creepy, and the dinosaur's not doing anything scary for a very long time. Yeah, it's great. I'm gonna have to watch it again.
To also play up to it, like they introduced that dinosaur before, like they describe it to you, but they don't show it at all. And in that scene where like that random dinosaur pops up, you're like, well, what the hell is this thing? And all of a sudden, like it its neck like flares out and it's spitting
Yeah.
things. You're like, oh shoot, like this is like the carnivorous little asshole.
I remember when I always find it funny when I see a movie that I haven't seen for years as an adult, and I suddenly realize, like, there's an incredibly attractive human being in this movie. I remember I was watching at the gym running, and I was like looking at Laura Dern, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, she's such a pretty lady, and I had no idea when I was a little kid, which was, I mean, it makes sense. But anyway, I did not watch a lot. My back, I was watching a ton recently, as you know, but my back, since the drive home, my back has been a little bit messed up, so I just have not been working out, which is when I watched everything. But I worked out twice this week, and I watched a little more Jujutsu Kaisen. I'm not going to talk more about it because we talked about it plenty last week. But I did start The White Lotus.
Okay.
Do you know what this is?
I've heard of it's on HBO, right?
Yeah, it's on HBO. It takes place at like a VIP high-end Hawaiian resort, and it's kind of all about the interplay between super rich spoiled people and the people who work for them. And so that's the type of thing that I enjoy. I talked to my big brother about it today. He feels like the humor in it is too uncomfortable and he couldn't handle it. And this is not like British Office levels of awkward, and so I can handle it. So it was okay. It was good. It was enjoyable. I'm excited to watch the rest of it, and I'll kind of let you know more as I go along. But also a big one, my wife and I started Brooklyn Nine-Nine all over again. This will be our like second watch through, or even third watch through. Well, I think part of the problem is that it always feels like there's a long time between seasons, at least between us getting to watch new seasons, and we forget everything, and so we just watch it all over again. And so we're just watching it again, and really this show was something special and hilarious from episode 1. It is such a good show. So we're watching it and we're laughing. It's a good show, but that's all that I really watched.
Nice.
So, yeah. Should we get to the movie then?
Let's do it, man.
Okay. Quick synopsis provided by me. Joe is a man who lives with his mother and is dealing with severe trauma from childhood as well as a military career, who works outside of the law, specializing in rescuing trafficked girls. A senator whose daughter was kidnapped hires Joe and points him to an illegal brothel for underage girls, where Joe violently attacks the owners and patrons in order to save the girl. Joe goes to a hotel to meet the senator, only to find that the senator committed suicide that morning. 2 dirty cops show up to the hotel, and one re-kidnaps Nina while the other fights Joe and is killed. The cop, not Joe. Joe runs home to find that his mother has been killed by 2 men still in his house. He kills them both, but not before getting one of them to admit that a nearby governor arranged to have Nina re-kidnapped. Joe makes it to the house, and similarly as before, brutally fights his way to saving Nina, who has already killed the governor and saved herself. The movie ends with Joe and Nina in a diner together, agreeing to leave, as it is a beautiful day. Austin, what did you like about this movie?
For sure. I do want to start out by saying that this was a much better movie than Annette that we watched last week. So
Annette is the pinnacle of filmmaking, and I loved it. What are you talking about?
Just the point, and like this was like above the point. I don't even know how that's possible. But
do you know what this movie didn't have though, Austin?
It didn't have Sparks playing all the songs.
It didn't have a puppet. Every movie would be made better by a puppet.
Pinocchio's punching air right now. I know.
Yeah.
So going in first, what I really liked about the movie is just kind of like the mystery that was going on. We were kind of like forced into Joe's story, obviously towards like the tail end of things, and they did a lot of showing, not telling, throughout the story, and like that just gave us a lot of intrigue. Like we can guess or make some assumptions as to Joe's like upbringing, just based on scars, trauma events, how he handles things, the way how he takes care of his mother, like all of that going on. In addition to how that relates to what he does now. It's like his cause. He was a kid who was at that point seemed like abused. And normally when we talk about like trafficked children, we're talking about like females. But since he's been on the other end of it, where it's been abuse just to the point like he doesn't want to tolerate that for anybody. So finding that he can get work in and be effective with the skills that he has, and make a difference, I think is huge. Like seeing Joe just pass by, like people don't want anything to do with him, but like if they knew what he actually did, then they would be thanking him for that. But like we don't see those moments because that's just not who he is. So I really liked Joe itself as a character, how we were thrown into things, the cause of what was going on. And then when we got to know more about Nina, kind of as well, like less so of the showing us on it, like we only heard about things that happened to Nina and like what was going on in her life. And they both had ways of like handling their trauma, which was like the countdown that they were doing, and they found different ways to parallel that throughout the movie. So I really just liked how it was two individuals of opposite sex, obviously opposite gender, opposite life, but still relating into like this hell of a world. And although the ending is a little odd at the end, and I'll talk about that later, I still feel like it worked out and I enjoyed it. So really for me, I had a good time watching it. I was really worried that they were going to dive deep into like the child trafficking, which I'm not a fan of that, even like for like the purpose of a movie. Not okay.
There's certain places that I don't think filmmakers should go, but this movie handled it really well, I thought.
Yeah. So I like that. I think a good example of that was when Joe was going throughout the house, going from room to room, and he was pulling the people out and then doing the deed instead of like showing a scene of like what's going on in the room. Like, no, you don't have to do that. So I thought that was great. But anyways, Matt, what did you like about the movie?
Well, kind of, and before I get to that too, yeah, I think I love that you said the movie shows and doesn't tell, because I thought the exact same thing, where it is like you absolutely know that Joe had a horrible abusive childhood, and it shows you next to nothing. It gives you some audio clips of his dad where you're like, okay, his dad freaking sucked. It gives you audio clips of he's not experiencing, it doesn't show him as a child experiencing violence. It doesn't even show his mom experiencing violence from what I can remember, but it's like, you know that his mom was horribly abused by his dad. You know that he was horribly abused by his dad. And it is just like unbelievably masterful how they convey that, where you absolutely know exactly what happened to Joe in his childhood and his military career and why he's so messed up by it. And it's not this long drawn out flashback. It's not any dialogue from his mom being like, well, your father, he was just horrible. And that was just unbelievable. So as for my likes, I really loved the way the violence was shot in this movie. And that's kind of, it's weird because I'm saying this because I really liked how it didn't get too violent, although it did at times, but you never really saw Joe's violence very clearly. The most clearly that you really saw it was on like grainy black and white security footage, and that was kind of the worst you ever saw. Every time it ever happened, he shot people, it would suddenly cut away from him, or at least from the person being shot. Like you never really saw Joe, at least very clearly, being violent. And I thought that was really, really interesting. I almost feel like if they had done that with Joe, they should have just kind of gone the whole way and not done it with everybody else, where it was kind of like one of those movies where there are violent things happening, but it never shows it very explicitly. But that was so cool. I really liked the way they shot that violence. It worked really, really well. Kind of how last week I was describing Annette as like the darker answer to La La Land. I feel like this is the darker answer to Taken. And if somebody ever asked me like, I want to watch a movie kind of like this, should I watch Taken or should I watch You Were Never Really Here? I would be like, You Were Never Really Here, hands down. I think this is a better movie than Taken. I feel like Taken gives this really polished and stylized and kind of like almost Disney version of the saving a girl from horrible trafficking nightmare story. This is the story that is very realistic because it's like, okay, if a guy really existed who could save someone like this, they're going to have to like exist on the fringe of society. They're probably going to have a lot of issues themselves. They're not doing it to be a big hero. They're not even doing it to save their own daughter. They're just doing it to save someone because they know this is wrong. Like, I just thought it was so cool and probably more realistic because the fight scenes in Taken are very stylized. This movie is like, I'm just gonna bring a hammer and that's all I need. And and like I said, the violence was never super focused on, which I really liked. But yeah, I think Taken's a fun movie. I really enjoyed it when I saw it, but this is like the superior movie in my opinion. So I really liked that a lot. And I kind of mentioned, actually, I mentioned before in answer to your likes, Joe's trauma. The way that I'm just gonna say it again, like the way they conveyed that was just like, wow, it was so good and so well done. And I wish there was more movies that did as good of a job at kind of showing these things rather than telling them. So really liked it. I mean, honestly, I think of what we've watched so far over the 20 something times we've recorded, this is probably one of my very favorite ones, where I will probably return to this movie, and if not return to it, talk about it to people on a pretty regular basis. And I'm bummed because this movie came out a few years ago. Like, I had plenty chances to see this movie and should have seen this movie and just never got around to it for whatever reason. And what was the year this came out again?
2018.
2018. So that was like 4 years ago. And it just 3 years ago. I'm terrible at math. I'm that bad at math. I don't. You didn't see it here, but I counted on my fingers even, and somehow got it wrong. 18, 19, 20, 21. That's 4. 18, 19, 20, 21. That's 4.
You don't count the year 2018. It came out in 2018.
Why can't I? I can count the year. No, you're absolutely right.
I was like,
3 years. It came out 3 years ago, and I never got around to it. So, anyway, Austin, what did you dislike about this movie?
Yeah, good question. So I do love movies that have like kind of ambiguous endings to them, where it's like you're not sure like where it kind of goes here. But I did kind of want a little bit more in this ending. Like, you can't just show me a hypothetical scene of Joe committing suicide and then 5 seconds later Nina wakes him up on the table, nothing's wrong, and then the movie ends. Like,
yeah, I thought for a second I thought that was trying to signify kind of like a rebirth, but it was like, this movie's not going to try and claim that Joe is now healed of his trauma because he saved a girl. So like, I thought for a second that might be what it'd be, and then I was like, no, that's not what it is. Also, not to mention, like, obviously Joe's not a bad guy in this, but also where is a middle-aged man and a young teenage girl gonna go from here? Her dad is dead. Like, was his plan to take her to the authorities, who at that point he couldn't trust anyway? The ambiguity of that just made me feel a little bit uncomfortable. Of like, I know Joe's not a creep, but also he kind of seems like a creep.
Yeah. So I mean, like, he has good intentions and he has a good cause, but like, that doesn't mean he's an okay person to live with. So yeah. Especially some guy who like plays with the knife, puts it in his mouth while, you know, other people are doing other things. So
let me go back to that scene too, because like that scene. Okay, number one, I mean, there's a whole other thing about if you see the Joker, like the relationship between Joe and his mom and this and the Joker is like, what's going on with Joaquin Phoenix and his mom that he's taking roles like that? But also the scene where she was in the bathroom and he's talking to her and he's dropping the knife, he's moving his foot. Like, there was something so childlike, like almost teenager about that. I thought that was super interesting. It's like suddenly Joe is home, he's not doing his usual work. It's like he's kind of reverted to this teenager mode of just like, I'm playing with a knife and I'm going to do something really stupid and dangerous like a teenager would do. Like, oh, I'm going to drop it and see if I can get my foot out of the way just in time. Like, that was interesting. There was only one scene that really felt that way, but it was kind of odd. But anyway, so I keep going. Yeah.
So that part kind of threw me off, was just like the sudden end to it. But also, like, Joe is driving around like a maniac on the roads, like barely conscious. where's the local law enforcement in this case? Also, he had his mom in the back seat in a bag and just kind of drove, and like that's not like a very like hidden vehicle. Anybody looks into this into that vehicle and it's like that's a body in there. Like that gets reported real quick. And I know people would be like, but it's New York, like people mind their own business, and it's like, yeah, there's like millions of people in New York. How are you just gonna drive out of the city with a body in your backseat like that? Like that's not gonna work out too well. So as like all that was going on, I was like, this dude's gonna get pulled over and it's all gonna go bad. Then it's like, oh, look at that, he made it to his destination.
Yeah,
that's convenient. So
yeah, that was awfully convenient. I agree.
But really, like that's my only nitpicks from the beginning of it, getting us into it, how they progressed with things, how they decided to do the shots of the movie, all that. Just done really, really well. I want more out of the ending, and maybe this turns into a situation where like there is more that comes after this movie. But really, as you mentioned, I did highly enjoy it. So I'm curious though, since you're so like this is one that you'll come back to or that you'll talk to people about, like what did you not enjoy about it?
Yeah, I mean, same as you too. Like, I really like this. I'm gonna mention some stuff here, but these are minor things. One thing you mentioned, like how convenient things are, how he's conveniently able to drive around like he's drunk and get his mom in his car without any issues, like stuff like that. It was also a little bit convoluted, but it really did work. But it definitely seemed, it was kind of like, I didn't really understand how he figured out where that brothel was to go save the girl in the first place. And if he does specialize in like saving girls from trafficking situations, it just kind of seems like almost too simple. It was almost too easy for him to find this girl.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like I'm all for saving people who are being trafficked. I just don't know if it's going to be that easy. And
like,
kind of the stuff.
2 people in there? Yeah, let me go. I got this. I can get a hammer for like $16. I got that.
And the stuff going on with the senator and the governor, I mean, I definitely get what was going on there, but it was a little bit like, so how are they getting away with this? And also, like, I forgot to mention this in the doc that we have, but like, one thing I do hate about this is that I'm not a fan of people who are into conspiracy theories about high-ranking government officials being part of a secret trafficking ring. And here's a movie about high-ranking government officials being part of a secret sex trafficking ring. So while the movie really, really works, if people believe this is a movie that is propagating that idea or about how that could be a thing that is really happening, and I'm not even saying, I'm sure there are powerful people who are part of things like that. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. I'm just not sure that I believe in a widespread secretive ring of people doing it, but that's neither here nor there. But really my biggest issue with the movie, and it's weird because I believe this was a beautiful scene, I loved how it was shot, it really messed with the pacing of the movie, and it went on a little bit too long. But the water burial for his mom, when he brings her into the lake and he has rocks in his pockets and he plans on killing himself, like, to me, the information he had gotten from the guy who killed his mom, like, I was under the impression it's like, okay, he's already made up his mind, he's definitely going to go save Nina a second time, and then he's like, okay, I figured out where Nina is, I can definitely save her, I think I'm going to go kill myself instead of doing anything about it. And I was just like, no, it seemed a little bit off from what his character's motivations were, and then it probably lasted a good like 2 or 3 minutes longer than it was, and the pacing of it had it kind of just had it been him walking into the water with his mom and then leaving right after that, it would have worked really good. But that whole floating scene where he's in the water, I was just kind of like, okay, come on, let's wrap it up, hurry it up. But I mean, and speaking of that, like, this is a tight movie. This is an hour-and-a-half movie. It is quick. It is compelling. It is so many things. It does so much in the hour and a half. I'm like, cool. This is great. I am super duper happy with this. So, but that was it. I mean, I really liked this movie. I think it's one of the best ones we've watched in a while.
Nice.
So,
yeah, I put it there too. I think the only thing that I probably liked more that we've watched was like A Taxi Driver.
You liked a Taxi Driver more than this?
Yeah.
Oh, I would definitely say I like this more than Taxi Driver.
Oh, okay. I can't remember all the movies we've watched now. Jeez.
now I want to look through it because I want to see. This may even be like my favorite one. Sound of Metal was pretty dang good. I would put that up there. Oh, wow. This might be my very favorite one. At least when it comes to like straight up drama, this is probably the one. I would say Nobody and King of Staten Island were probably two of my more favorite ones, though, because I like both of those quite a bit.
Sound of Metal like fits somewhere in there for me, but like that's a totally different setting of a silent movie.
Yeah. Cool.
Anyways,
we decided what we were going to watch last week, didn't we?
Now I know that we did, and I want to see if you're willing to like hear reason.
I'll see whatever you want to see.
So this Friday, HBO has one of those straight to theater, but also streaming services at the same time movies, which is Malignant. Now, I haven't seen anything about the movie, but I know it's a scary movie, and I know I'm probably going to be watching it with my wife anyways. So
I'll see it. Yeah, I'll do
cool
it.
with it. Okay.
Yeah.
The cover poster that I'm seeing though makes me think of like an old style scary movie type thing. So
I have seen some clips of it just kind of like on like a YouTube commercial, which I'm usually skipping, but I feel like I may have an idea of something unique about how it's filmed, and I could be wrong, but I'm wondering if it is kind of what I'm thinking it might be, I might really be into it. So we will see.
Cool.
So I might really like this. Okay, let's do it. Malignant next week. Wasn't there some anime thing you wanted to watch that you said we were going to watch?
Yeah, but like we can put that off the side. Like this seems interesting.
Okay. Cool. Let's do it.
Cool.
Have fun.
Okay.
LA. Have a good night. I'll see you.